By a vestibule, by a lift, by a tubular railway, by a platform, by a sliding door. By reversing all the steps of her departure, did Vashti arrive at her son's room, which exactly resembled her own. She might well declare that the visit was superfluous. The buttons, the knobs, the reading desk, the temperature, the atmosphere, the illumination, all were exactly the same. And if Kuno himself, flesh of her flesh, stood close beside her at last, what profit was there in that? She was too well bred to shake his hand. Averting her eyes, she spoke as follows. Here I am. I have had the most terrible journey and greatly damaged the development of my soul. It is not worth it, Kuno. It is not worth it. My time is too precious. The sunlight almost touched me, and I have met the rudest people. I can only stop for a few minutes. Say what you want to say, and then I must return. I've been threatened with homelessness, said Kuno. She looked at him now. I have been threatened with homelessness, and I could not tell you such a thing through the machine. Homelessness means death. The victim is exposed to the air, which kills him. I have been outside since I spoke to you last. The tremendous thing has happened, and they have discovered me. But why shouldn't you go outside? She exclaimed. It is perfectly legal, perfectly mechanical, to visit the surface of the earth. I have lately been to a lecture on the sea. There's no objection to that. One simply summons a respirator and gets an egression permit. It is not the kind of thing that spiritually minded people do, and I begged you not to do it, but there's no legal objection to it. I did not get an egression permit. Then how did you get out? I found a way out on my own. The phrase conveyed no meaning to her, and he had to repeat it. On your own? She whispered. But that would be wrong. Why? The question shocked her beyond measure. You are beginning to worship the machine, he said coldly. You think it irreligious of me to have found a way out on my own. It was just what the committee thought when they threatened me with homelessness. At this, she grew angry. I worship nothing, she cried. I am most advanced. I don't think you irreligious, for there is no such thing as religion left. All the fear and the superstition that existed once has been destroyed by the machine. I only meant that to find a way out on your own was... Besides, there is no way out. So it was always supposed. Except through the vomitories, for which one must have an egression permit. It is impossible to get out. The book says so. Well, the book is wrong, said Kuno. You know that we have lost the sense of space. We say space is annihilated, but we have annihilated not space, but the sense thereof. We have lost a part of ourselves. I determined to recover it, and I began by walking up and down the platform of the railway station outside my room. Up and down, until I was tired, and so did recapture the meaning of near and far. Near is a place to which I can get quickly on my feet, not a place to which the train or the airship will take me. Far is a place to which I cannot get quickly on my feet. The vomitory is far, though I could get there in 38 seconds by summoning a train. Man is the measure. That was my first lesson. Man's feet are the measure for distance. His hands are the measure for ownership. His body is the measure for all that is lovable and desirable and strong. Then I went further. It was then that I called you to come for the first time, and you would not come. This city, as you know, is built deep beneath the surface of the earth, with only the vomitories protruding. Having paced the platform outside my room, I took the lift to the next platform and paced that also, and so with each in turn, until I came to the topmost, above which begins the earth. All the platforms were exactly alike, and all that I gained by visiting them was to develop my sense of space and my muscles. I think I should have been content with this. It is not a little thing. But as I walked and brooded, it occurred to me our cities had been built in the days when men still breathed the outer air, and there had been ventilation shafts for the workmen. I could think of nothing but these ventilation shafts. Had they been destroyed by all the food tubes and medicine tubes and music tubes that the machine had evolved? Or did traces of them remain? One thing was certain. If I came upon them anywhere, it would be in the railway tunnels of the topmost story. Those tunnels, of course, are lighted. Everything is light, artificial light. Darkness is the exception. So when I saw a black gap in the tiles, I knew that it was an exception, and I rejoiced. I put in my arm. I could put in no more at first, and I waved it around and around in ecstasy. I loosened another tile and put in my head, and I shouted into the darkness, "I am coming. I shall do it." And my voice reverberated down the endless passage. I seemed to hear the spirit of the dead workmen who had returned each evening to the starlight and to their wives. And all the generations who had lived in the open air called back to me, "You will do it. You are coming." He paused, and, absurd as he was, his last words moved her. For Kuno had lately asked to be a father, and his request had been refused by the committee. He was not a type that the machine desired to hand on. I had done enough for one day, so I crawled back to the platform, went down in the lift, and summoned my bed. Ah, what dreams! And again I called you, and again you refused. She shook her head and said, "Don't. Don't talk of these terrible things. You make me miserable. You are throwing civilization away." But I had got back the sense of space, and a man cannot rest then. I determined to get into that hole and climb the shaft, and so I exercised my arms. Day after day I went through ridiculous movements until my flesh ached, and I could hang by my hands and hold the pillow of my bed outstretched for many minutes. Then I summoned a respirator and started. It was easy at first. The mortar had rotted, and I soon pushed more tiles in and clambered after them into the darkness, and the spirits of the dead comforted me. I don't know what I mean by that. I just say what I felt. I felt for the first time that a protest had been lodged against corruption, and that even as the dead were comforting me, so I was comforting the unborn. I felt that humanity existed, and that it existed without clothes. How can I possibly explain this? It was naked. Humanity seemed naked, and all these tubes and buttons and machinery neither came into the world with us, nor will they follow us out, nor do they matter supremely while we are here. Had I been strong, I would have torn off every garment I had and gone out into the outer world unswaddled. But this is not for me, nor perhaps for my generation. I climbed with my respirator and my hygienic clothes and my dietic tabloids. There was a ladder made of some primeval metal. The light from the railway fell upon its lowest rungs, and I saw that it led straight upwards out of the rubble at the bottom of the shaft. Perhaps our ancestors ran up and down it a dozen times a day in their building. As I climbed, the rough edges cut through my gloves so that my hands bled. The light helped me for a little, and then the darkness came, and worse, silence, which pierced my ears like a sword. The machine hums. Did you know that? Its hum penetrates our blood. It may even guide our thoughts. Who knows? I was getting beyond its power. And then I thought, this silence means that I am doing wrong. But I heard voices in the silence, and again they strengthened me. He laughed. I had need of them. And then the next moment, I cracked my head against something. She sighed. I had reached one of those pneumatic stoppers that defend us from the outer air. You may have noticed them on the airship. Pitch dark, my feet on the rungs of an invisible ladder, my hands cut. I cannot explain how I lived through this part, but the voices comforted me, and I felt for fastenings. The stopper was about 8 feet across. I passed my hand over it as far as I could reach. It was perfectly smooth. I felt it almost to the center, not quite to the center. My arm was too short. And then the voice said, "Jump. It is worth it. There may be a handle in the center. You may be able to catch hold of it, and so come to us of your own way. And if there is no handle, you may fall and be dashed to pieces. It is still worth it. You will still come to us your own way." So I jumped. There was a handle, and he paused. Tears gathered in his mother's eyes. She knew his fate. If he did not die today, he would die tomorrow. There was no room for such a person in this world. And with her pity, disgust mingled. She was ashamed at having borne such a son. She who had always been so respectable and so full of ideas. Was he really the little boy to whom she had taught the use of the stops and the buttons, to whom she had given his first lessons in the book? The very hair that disfigured his lip showed that he was reverting to some savage type. On atavism, the machine can have no mercy. There was a handle, and I did catch it. I hung over the darkness and heard the hum of those working as the last whisper in a dying dream. All the things I had cared about, all the people I had spoken to through the tubes, appeared infinitely little. Meanwhile, the handle revolved. My weight had set something in motion, and I span slowly, and then I cannot describe it. I was lying with my face in the sunshine. Blood poured from my nose and ears, and I heard a tremendous roaring. The stopper, with me clinging to it, had simply been blown out of the earth, and the air that we make down here was escaping through the vent into the air above. It burst up like a fountain. I crawled back to it, for the upper air hurts. And, as it were, I took great sips from the edge. My respirator had flown goodness knows where. My clothes were torn. I just lay with my lips close to the hole. I sipped until the bleeding stopped. You can imagine nothing so curious. This hollow in the grass, the sun shining into it, not brilliantly, but through marbled clouds, the peace, the nonchalance, the sense of space, and brushing my cheek, the roaring fountain of our artificial air. Soon I spied my respirator bobbing up and down in the current, high above my head, and higher still were the many airships. But no one ever looks out of the airships. In any case, they would not have picked me up. There I was, stranded. The sun shone a little way down the shaft and revealed the topmost rung of the ladder, but it was hopeless to try to reach it. I would have either been tossed up against the escape or else have fallen in and died. I could only lie on the grass, sipping and sipping, and from time to time glancing around me. Lucky for me, the air began to fall back into the hollow and fill it as water fills a bowl. I could crawl about. Presently I stood. I breathed a mixture in which the air that hurts predominated whenever I tried to climb the sides. It was not so bad. I had not lost my tabloids and remained ridiculously cheerful. And as far as the machine, I forgot about it altogether. My one aim was to get to the top, where the ferns were, and to view whatever objects lay beyond. He broke off. I don't think this is interesting you. The rest will interest you even less. There are no ideas in it, and I wish that I had not troubled you to come. We are too different, Mother. She told him to continue. It was evening before I climbed the bank. The sun had very nearly slipped out of the sky by this time, and I could not get a good view. You, who have just crossed the roof of the world, will not want to hear an account of the little hills that I saw. Low, colorless hills. But to me, they were living, and the turf that covered them was skin, under which their muscles rippled. And I felt that those hills had called with incalculable force to men in the past, and that men had loved them. Now they sleep, perhaps forever. They commune with humanity in dreams. His voice rose passionately. Can't you see, cannot all you lecturers see, that it is we that are dying, and that down here the only thing that really lives is the machine? We created the machine to do our will, but we cannot make it do our will now. It has robbed us of the sense of space and of the sense of touch. It has blurred every human relation and narrowed down love to carnal acts. It has paralyzed our bodies and our wills, and now it compels us to worship it. The machine develops, but not on our lines. The machine proceeds, but not to our goals. We only exist as the blood that courses through its arteries, and if it could work without us, it would let us die. He broke off for the second time. Go on, said his mother wearily. He shook his head. Go on. Nothing that you say can distress me now. I am hardened. I had meant to tell you the rest, but I cannot. I know that I cannot. Goodbye. Vashti stood irresolute. All her nerves were tingling with his blasphemies. But she was also inquisitive. This is unfair, she complained. You have called me across the world to hear your story, and hear it I will. Tell me, as briefly as possible, for this is a disastrous waste of time. Tell me how you returned to civilization. Oh, that, he said. You would like to hear about civilization, certainly. Had I gotten to where my respirator fell down? No, but I understand everything now. You put on your respirator and managed to walk along the surface of the earth to a vomitory, and there your conduct was reported to the Central Committee. By no means. He passed his hand over his forehead as if dispelling some strong impression. Then, resuming his narrative, he warmed to it again. About sunset, the respirator fell. As I said, I had entirely forgotten about the machine, and I paid no great attention at the time, being occupied with other things. I had my pool of air, into which I could dip when the outer keenness became intolerable, and which would possibly remain for days, provided that no wind sprang up to disperse it. Not until it was too late did I realize what the stoppage of the escape implied. You see, the gap in the tunnel was being mended. The mending apparatus was after me. One other warning I had, but I neglected it. The sky at night was clearer than it had been in the day, and the moon shone into the dell at moments quite brightly. I was in my usual place, on the boundary between the two atmospheres, when I thought I saw something dark move across the bottom of the dell and vanish into the shaft. In my folly, I ran down. I bent over and listened. I thought I could hear a faint scraping noise in the depths. At this, I took alarm, but it was too late. I determined to put on my respirator and to walk right out of the dell, but my respirator was gone. I knew exactly where it had fallen, between the stopper and the aperture, and I could even feel the mark that it had made in the turf. It was gone, and I realized that something evil was at work, and I had better escape to the other air, even if I must die. But I never started. Out of the shaft. It is too horrible. A worm, a long white worm, had crawled out of the shaft and was gliding over the moonlit grass. I screamed. I did everything I should not have done. I stamped on the creature instead of flying from it, and it at once curled around my ankle, and then we fought. The worm let me run all over the dell, but edged up my leg as I ran. "Help!" I cried. "Help!" And then my feet were wound together. I fell. I was dragged away from the ferns and the living hills and past the great metal stopper. And I thought it might save me again if I could hold on to the handle. But it was also enwrapped. The whole dell was full of the things. They were searching in all directions. They were denuding it, and the white snouts of others peeped out of the hole, ready if needed. Everything that could be moved they brought. Brushwood, bundles of fern, everything. And down we all went, intertwined, into hell. The last thing that I saw before the stopper closed after us were certain stars, and I felt that a man of my sort lived in the sky. For I did fight. I fought till the very end, and it was only my head hitting against the ladder that quieted me. I woke up in this room. The worms had vanished, and I was surrounded by artificial air, artificial light, artificial peace, and my friends were calling to me down speaking tubes to know whether I had come across any new ideas lately. Here his story ended. Discussion of it was impossible, and Vashti turned to go. "It will end in homelessness," she said quietly. "I wish it would," retorted Kuno. "The machine has been most merciful. I prefer the mercy of God." "By that superstitious phrase, do you mean that you could live in the outer air?" "Yes." "Have you ever seen, around the vomitories, the bones of those who were extruded after the Great Rebellion?" "Yes." "They were left where they perished for our edification. A few crawled away, but they perished too. Who can doubt it? And so with the homeless of our own day. The surface of the earth supports life no longer." "Indeed. Ferns and a little grass may survive, but all higher forms have perished. Has any airship detected them? No. Has any lecturer dealt with them? No. Then why this obstinacy?" "Because I have seen them," he exploded. "Seen what?" "Because I have seen her in the twilight. Because she came to help me when I called. Because she too was entangled by the worms and was killed by one of them piercing her throat." He was mad. Vashti departed. And in the troubles that followed, she never saw his face again.